Welcome to MJ Radio. I'm Melinda Joy Pattison, your host. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in private psychotherapy practice in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This show is all about raising the collective consciousness. So when you tune in, you're going to hear interesting conversations about interesting things with interesting people. And today, one of my favorite guests, who's been on my show when it was called the Melinda Joy Hour, on the radio, the real radio, my brother and my friend, Will Pattison. You can go back and access three or four episodes where we were chatting, and today you get to see him. So welcome, friend Will.
Hey, how's it going? I'm
Been
happy
so long.
Right, like
Since
24
I saw
hours
you.
or something, right? Yes, yeah, you were here
Right.
yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm stoked. I'm stoked to be on here with you again. You know, I'm always happy to support what you're doing. I apologize for the very unprofessional backdrop here. I'm actually just in my bedroom at my desk where I have my Mac so that I can use the good microphone. I hopefully don't have any pairs of underwear or dirty socks
I don't see any.
laying back there. So
I
yeah,
don't see any. But next time or in the not too distant future, we'll do this with you in your new studio.
yeah, I'm getting ready to
Yeah.
do it. Yeah. I've got lots of drama happening in my life, as you know. I am purchasing our family home from our parents and getting ready to do a major renovation thing. And yeah, the silliness has already started, as you saw when you were here over the weekend.
It's all very exciting, though.
Buying ovens and picking out floor material and countertops, and
Did the
and
plastic cover stay on the stove?
Yes, thank you for covering my very expensive oven that's sitting out on the porch. That's what happens when you get a really good deal on one and you buy it 3 months before the contractor is going to install it. But
Right. Oh well.
It's all good.
Oh well. Yeah. I'm glad it stayed in place.
Yeah, it's actually it's going to be a pretty huge project overall, and because of my physical condition, as we've talked about on your show before, with my remnants of spinal cord injury slowing me down so much, it's a pretty huge project to contemplate, because I'm the kind of guy who would have done half the work myself in my previous life, and can't do that now. I'm just not that guy anymore. So it's there's a lot to think about, but that's okay, and it kind of fits into what I thought I might take the opportunity to talk about today, because you asked me for a topic, and I think I have one that fits perfectly.
Cool. Cool. Well, let's just mention that you said you would used to have what is normal, but you would have done most of the work yourself, but you did do a pretty fancy design there on your computer that I saw for all this work, and not a single bit of it is going to be done without your very much spot on attention. So
yeah, that's just kind of how I'm wired. I do what I can still. Right? I can't swing a hammer or do any framing or anything like that. I'm much to my contractor's chagrin, I am going to be involved. So hopefully for the better.
Yeah. You need a new hat just for this project.
I don't know. We'll see. So
it's a great haircut, by the way.
Yeah, somebody gave me a really good haircut. Yeah. Didn't even cost me anything but lunch either. So
hard to beat.
Right,
hard to beat.
Right. Smoking deal. Yeah.
So what is this book?
Okay, so I thought a book that I just finished reading would be a pretty good topic for your podcast. And I've got my iPad here, so I can make some references to it if I need to. But It's called The Obstacle is the Way, and it's by a guy named Ryan Holiday. And I got turned on to this book by one of my best business friends. He's a guy who's in the pro class when it comes to making money and selling stuff and running a business successfully. Oh boy, 10% battery remaining. Yeah, of course. Technology is either your best friend or your worst enemy.
Right.
Uh,
That's the
it,
truth. That's a whole nother conversation.
Fortunately, we have these things called chords, so I'll plug it in here in a second. But anyway, the book is called "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday, and you can find out about this book pretty quickly through the old Google foo, because it's become pretty popular in circles like the NFL, um, any kind of business literature circles. It's gotten a lot of publicity because this Ryan Holiday guy used to be he did internet marketing for a while, and one day somebody turned him on to a book called Meditations by a guy named Marcus Aurelius. Have you ever heard of Marcus?
Marcus Aurelius was a Roman.
He was, in fact, a Roman.
Is that the one we're talking about?
It's the one we're talking about. He was a Roman emperor. And I am like next to completely ignorant about Roman history, so I don't know much more about old Marcus than that. But I do now intend to read Meditations after going through this book. Um, Marcus Aurelius was apparently one of the OG Stoics. And a lot of his writings and thinking was about Stoicism. And there's some thought that Stoicism is kind of making a return as a popular philosophy. I don't know if that's true or not, but this book could certainly stand for that. But he's not the only one. Epictetus, Seneca. Apparently George Washington was schooled in the writings of those guys when he was a kid. And so what this book is it's a collection of essays about Stoicism and about these well-known historical figures like Washington, Rockefeller, Teddy Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, all of these guys, Abraham Lincoln, just a lot of really great short essays. It's short chapters. It's a super easy read, but it's powerful stuff.
So maybe it'd be good to define Stoicism for those who may not be familiar.
Okay, well, I'll try.
Who are listening.
I'll try. This is kind of, for me, this has been one of those things where it was a belief system looking for a home with me. One of those things where rather than me looking for it, to find a belief system that worked for me, this was the opposite, where once I started to read about it, I was like, wait a minute, this is me. I'm already a disciple. I'm already a member of this church. I just didn't know it yet. And I think it is Stoicism is kind of embodied by a couple of pithy quotes. One that I know some people don't like, but it's one of my favorites, and I've been saying it for years, and that is, it is what it is. And that comes up a bunch of times in this book. The other one that a lot of people have seen on those, motivational posters and things at work is God grant me the strength to change the things that I can,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
serenity to accept the things that I cannot,
Right.
and the wisdom to know the difference. And
Yeah.
that, as sort of cliche as it is, and it doesn't really matter if you're religious or not, because the basic philosophy there is kind of what defines Stoicism. And the book breaks it down a lot more, and I can get into that as much as you want me to, as much as I'm able to. But that's kind of what it is um, not necessarily fatalism, but just an understanding that, shit happens. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's the only explanation. And the only choice you have in that moment is how you're going to handle it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So would you like, I think it'd be fun to have an example from personal example and or an example from this book, like a story. Stories are
Sure.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, for sure. Well, so a pretty good example from I mean, my own situation is basically, my entire story.
Right.
With the spinal cord injury that I suffered 10 years ago or 11 years ago now, and how I have,
Well,
people have said to me, you handle this like a trooper. You don't seem to let this thing get you down. When I was in the hospital, they were trying to stuff me full of antidepressants, and
mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
refused. I think the doctor, I think some of those doctors were pretty offended because I was just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was
Mm-hmm.
released from the hospital in Denver, you have to do they have to do the exit interview on discharge, and I looked at my file later, and part of the thing with anybody with a spinal cord injury is they do a psychological evaluation, because it unfortunately is a demographic that ends in suicide for a large percentage. Um,
Oh, is that right?
yeah, I mean, and in particular, the type of spinal cord injuries I have, because
Mm-hmm.
for people who haven't listened to any of this stuff before, for me, I have an incomplete spinal cord injury. I was initially
Oh,
paralyzed from the neck down. You know all this,
yeah.
but my spinal cord wasn't actually severed. I didn't
Right.
break any of
Yeah.
the bones in my neck. I blew out the discs, and it basically just, strangled my spinal cord and left me turned off for long enough to make me initially paralyzed from the neck down. And I slowly,
Uh-huh.
gradually recovered, a lot of things along the way. And so now, obviously I'm not completely paralyzed, but I mean, I can stand up and I can walk, but not well. And you can see that my hands don't work properly. And I live with a lot of physical pain. Um, and so because of that sort of living a half life, the doctors told me, they said, look, man, you're at higher risk, because if you had a complete spinal cord injury and you just know that you're going to be in a
That's it.
wheelchair for the rest of your life, that's it. That's
Yeah.
what you deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because you're an incomplete spinal cord injury, you're constantly being teased with these bits of recovery. And they may take years and years and years. And that has proven to certainly be true. And they
It's
said,
yeah,
uh,
totally true.
a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people just can't deal with that.
And
So
I remember asking you, actually, the first interview we ever did, which was for a school project for my
right,
master's program.
I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah, and I said, has there ever been a time when you have said to yourself, okay, this is as far as this is as far as I can go. This is the place. And you remember what your answer was?
I don't, but I can imagine, because the answer hasn't changed.
Right, right. Well, you essentially said, "F no, fuck no."
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely
gets
not.
me up in the morning.
Right.
That's what gets me up in the morning.
Right. And that's one of those things that made me realize that I've been a stoicist probably since I was born and just didn't know it. But to get back to that episode with the psychologist on my release from the hospital,
Right. Yeah.
what they wrote in my file was this patient does not respond normally to his injury. Yeah, right.
Okay.
And
Yay.
yay, exactly. And that's something that I've hung on to because it's like, you damn right I don't.
Exactly. And
And
why would you?
well, I mean, yeah, there's lots of reasons why. I'm not here to judge because everybody's wired differently. But the point of this book is that you don't have to be born a Stoic. You don't have to grow up on a farm in the middle of nowhere and be shoveling dirt before you're out of grade school. You don't have to be a victim of parental child labor law. You don't have to. You don't have to be. I think some of it runs in our DNA, but you don't have to be born a Stoic. You can learn to be, and some of it just comes through practice, and just developing these mantras and practicing every day in every situation. When those things come up that want to knock you off your daily path, and just basically um, conditioning yourself to withstand that. But it's not just it's not the old positive thinking thing. It's not that at all. It's not that you just have to smile and you just have to be positive, because what Stoicism recognizes is that sometimes that's just silly. And
Right. And sometimes the shit that happens sucks. It sucks.
exactly
Big
right.
time.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Stoicism is neither positivity or negativity. It's realism.
Okay.
And I think that's the most powerful thing. It's okay, this is the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how am
Yeah.
I going to think about it? How am I going to view the situation?
Mm-hmm.
What are my perceptions?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to correct those? Does the examination of those perceptions cause you to feel better or worse? And if it's worse, why? That's the point where you have to stop, take a breath, set your emotions aside, recognize that your feels don't always matter, and look at the thing in a very cold and objective way, and say, all right, this is the deal. This is my war. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Okay, you're
There
back.
was I am, and that's because I failed to put do not disturb. Okay, so
There you
if
go.
you'll just like start your last sentence over, we'll take care of it. Yeah.
You should
Cut
just
that
leave
part
it in. That's keeping it real.
out.
And
For the most part, I do.
I don't remember what. I mean, I don't know where I was when you. Okay, now I can't hear you again.
There.
Okay.
No.
All right. Yep.
Shit. Okay.
Okay, there you
I
are.
may
Now
have to go out and come in again.
I can hear you. It's
Okay.
okay. It's okay. You'll
Oh,
just have
there
a
you are. There you are. There you are.
yeah. Okay, so you'll just have to have a jump cut there.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm. Mm.
I got you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a little technical difficulty there. Little bit of a jump cut. These things happen. Anyway, I think what I was saying before Melinda discovered she didn't have Do Not Disturb turned on was just that when these things in life come along and want to derail you, um, or people are, whether it's a thing, your car breaks down, somebody's harshing your gig, telling you you're not good enough, things aren't going your way, your body hurts, whatever it is, you know, positive thinking is not going to fix any of that. But neither is negative thinking. Negative thinking most certainly will not. And that's the moment
Mhm.
where you have to stop and take a breath and, recognize that your feels don't always matter, that you have to be objective in that moment. You have to look, rationally at the situation and go, okay, this is the deal. This is my war. This is my battle. And now I have to figure out how I'm going to fight it. And that's kind of the first part of the book is he talks about, working on your perceptions and getting your thinking right so that you can then move into a sort of an action phase and decide what it is that you're going to do. And while you're asking me questions, I'm going to find the example that I was thinking about.
Well, so what jumps out at me pretty quickly is this part about saying that your feels don't matter,
Right? Sometimes that's
because because the business I'm in is uh not that I'm going to disagree about your feels don't matter, but the key is not allowing the 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 feeling to control what you do.
right. And
It's about, yeah, it's about, the feeling needs to be acknowledged, and this is what I talk to my clients about all the time, all the time, all the time, is that feelings that go unacknowledged will find a way to come back and get your attention.
right. And
they
this is
they will keep beating on the door.
and I'm glad you brought this up because when I say that there are times when your feelings don't matter, I don't want people to think that I'm unsympathetic because it's absolutely not about dismissing your feelings or refusing to acknowledge them. In fact, it's completely the opposite. It's okay, I do feel this way. Now, am I
Yeah.
going to set that aside or am I going to allow it to control me? That's the deal. And so
Mm.
yeah, to just say, there are times when your feelings don't matter is really just sort of shorthand for the process of acknowledging recognizing your feelings, acknowledging your feelings, and then setting them aside where when you have to, because there are going to be times when you have to, right? You get a flat tire on the way to work, you're late. Being pissed off is not going to get your flat tire fixed any faster, right?
Yeah.
Not at all. Being in a panic is not going to get you AAA to fix your tire any faster. Yelling
Mm-hmm.
and screaming at the AAA guy is not going to get you there any faster,
Oh man.
right?
Right.
So again, that's what I mean when I say that there are times when your feels don't matter. It's not that they're not important. I don't ever want anybody to think that because they are. It's just
Well, and
that,
I know better. I know you better
yeah.
than that. So I'm glad we sort of fleshed that out a bit. And
Okay,
did you say
so
there's a story there?
well, yeah, and I just want to make sure that I get it right. I just finished um, this book a few days ago, and so I'm not, and I've only read it once. I tend to only do that, and so I'm not able to just immediately draw these examples to mind. Like the one that I want in particular is, let me find it here. In fact, this may be time for another one of those jump cuts because nobody needs to sit here and watch me thumb through
Coming
this
through.
book.
Well, that's
Right.
okay. We can do that too. We can do that too. Yeah. No. Did you say that he uses a lot of uh like you were saying, Teddy Roosevelt and a bunch of other people, like in his like presidential people in there.
Yeah, I'll come back to that in a second when we restart here.
Excuse me. Mm. Mm.
Okay, I'm ready to start back up again.
Okay. So
Okay,
go
okay, so
ahead.
okay, so thank goodness for the jump cut again. The good news with this book is that each chapter involves a story about a specific person, and he identifies them pretty quickly. So I was able to just thumb through here and find the one I wanted. I just wanted to make sure I had the right person. So anyway, we're all good. And you were asking me while we were in the middle of the jump cut about how he uses these stories. Ask me that
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of, names that are familiar from history, from ancient Rome to American presidential history, and I
Right.
don't know who all else. So that tweaks my interest already.
Well, that's this example in particular, and it's Thomas Jefferson. And I don't, again, I'm not nearly as educated on presidential history as I should be. I did not know that Thomas Jefferson was really a very quiet guy and not a powerful speaker. But he
Mm,
was, as we
I
know,
think I have read that. Yeah.
right. But he was, as we know, a very powerful writer. I mean,
Mm,
hey,
hmm
there's
hmm
that
hmm
thing, the Declaration of Independence, right? And he wrote a lot of other things. And this is a classic example that Holiday talks about of being objective about your strengths and your weaknesses, and changing your perception of those weaknesses to flip them around to look at them as potentially as an opportunity or a different way to channel your energy. um,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's kind of like some of your listeners may have heard of a guy named Jocko Willink. He's another podcaster out there that definitely subscribes to this. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, and he has
Mm,
this thing on
hmm
YouTube that I
hmm
recommend people look up. It's a video called Good, and
Okay.
and the whole thing, it's just a couple minutes long, and the whole thing is about how, rather than looking at like that flat tire thing, or whatever it is that comes up, rather than um, looking at it as a disaster and focusing on the negative, you say, good, this gives
Ah.
me an opportunity to exercise my problem solving skills. Or like me, like, look, one of the things with spinal cord injury is my bladder's a mess. Like, I'm fortunate that it works, because that's not the case with most people who have a spinal cord injury. but
Yes.
but I don't
Hmm.
get a lot of warning. It's like, I'm in the middle of something. I mean, it could happen right now while we're podcasting. And it's
We
like,
take another jump cut.
we'll take another jump cut, because my bladder will be like, yo, dude, now, right now, right now. And for a long time, I would just be super irritated and I would forget. I'm super lucky as a guy with a spinal cord injury to have a bladder that functions, that lets me know when I need to pee. and that I can go do that normally.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would forget
Mm-hmm.
that. I would just be, damn it, I was in the middle of this TV show and now I got to go take a piss.
Right.
And I would frequently have to remind myself that. And after I heard that thing from Jocko, it instantly made it easier for me because I switched from griping to myself about it and then going through the process of reminding myself, blah, 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 you're lucky, blah, 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 to just simply saying, good. This means I need to walk some more, and that's good for my legs.
Ah, we have all kinds of organic things
Right. We're
happen
keeping it super real today.
during these.
Right. We're keeping it super real.
Yeah.
So it's that simple. And this thing with Thomas Jefferson was kind of the same sort of thing where he basically was like, yeah, I don't like public speaking. I'm not good at it, but I can write and I can do some good things for my nation by focusing my energy on that. And obviously that's what he did. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
so the book is just, it's just full of stories like that. Again, each chapter basically is a story like that. And yeah, a lot of them were presidents, and he's pretty even-handed. I did notice that he for anybody who's worried about the you know he does not fall into any political or religious camp. He spreads it around, is what I'm trying to say.
That's
So
appreciated.
yeah, because
Yeah.
it's nobody wants to get into a book that like this and then find yourself being preached at from the other camp. That's no fun. And he does a really good
Mhm.
job of keeping it neutral.
Yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah. And you had mentioned this book to me, and I have it in my, we talked about piles. Uh, I'm not going to turn this camera around and show you piles of books, but they are here.
Well, I think you should move it to the top of your pile. I've already given it to two other people, and I gave it to a friend of mine just yesterday. I shipped her a copy of it, and I'm really anxious to see how she receives it because she and I have been talking about art a lot. She likes to paint, but she's in that developmental phase of exploring, you know, her artwork, and
Mm-hmm.
she's got raw talent, and she's got a willingness to just try different things, which is huge. But she's held back by feeling like she's not good at it because she, doesn't really have any direction. People in her family
Mm-hmm.
are critical of her efforts, and
Mm-hmm.
she's just like, I just want to quit. I just don't feel like I'm good at this. And I keep telling her, look, you're at the hard part right now, but at least you've got talent. I recognize that there, but you have to set your feelings aside and decide that you want to do this and decide that you want to learn and not let the opinions of sheep affect the actions of the lion.
Very good. She's lucky to have you encouraging her.
Well, we'll see.
Lucky to
We'll
have
see.
you for
We'll see what
a
happens.
friend.
You can't
Yeah.
always you can't always make the horse drink, but it was easy to send her a book. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And some sometimes there's just a little step in the direction that somebody can take that is going to make an enormous difference going forward. And your story about your bladder actually is a really great example of that. I mean, it was just that little, you know.
keeping it real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. 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 So, what happens next in your in this project?
Which you mean my house project?
Mhm.
Well, yeah. Good question. I'm waiting for the contractors to decide to come and break some ground. So we'll see. But Uh, I will remain stoic until I know it's going to happen, because as much as I want it to move forward immediately, no amount of me wanting that is going to make it move any faster. Everybody is
Right.
screwed up right now with all of the coronavirus stuff. Still, they've got guys who are in quarantine, uh,
Mm,
and it literally does not matter what I think about any of that, whether I agree with it, don't agree with it, am impatient, angry. It literally does not matter one single bit.
right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I, they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna start when they're able to start, and I, this is an exercise. Literally, this is an example of a small daily exercise in Stoicism, um, and I will just be carrying on. I mean, I'm going to call them every week and let them know that I'm ready and that I have things to discuss and that I want them to do and get updates. But
Right. Right.
I'm not going to be I'm not going to be I'm not going to be pushy, because that is not going to help. And here's the thing: is I want them to do a lot of things in my interest, obviously, with this project. So now is probably not a good time to make them, angry with me or frustrated with me. I don't want them coming in here already thinking that I'm a pain in the ass, right?
Well,
So
right.
I have to be
Right.
I have to be objective about it, and that doesn't mean
Uh-huh.
that I'm going to accept any excuses that are obvious BS. But again, controlling what I can, accepting what I can't, and hopefully being smart enough to know the difference.
Right. Right. I think that people have a misconception about the idea of stoicism.
Possibly. Tell me what you think.
And well, part of it has to do with what I was saying about feelings, and you really clarified that nicely. But that you just have to uh, just take it, just uh, not have feelings. Not that stoicism is about going through life without really engaging,
It's
maybe.
not. Yeah, it's
And
definitely
it's
not
not that
that.
at all.
And I can see why you say that some people may have a misperception of it, and it's because it's used. The word stoic is used as an adjective to describe people who are the strong silent type. And so people may get the idea that that's all it
Mm-hmm.
is just
Mm-hmm.
people who aren't
Mm-hmm.
expressing themselves, or who literally have no feelings, or whatever the case may be. And that's not it. That's not it at all.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
Stoicism as a philosophy is much more of a practical application of ideas to your life on a moment by moment basis than it is anything else. It's not a it's independent of a personality trait. You can be in fact
Mm-hmm.
in fact
Nicely
so,
said. Yeah.
yeah, my buddy that turned me on to this book, in fact, is, I would consider, a classical stoicist, now that I kind of know how to put it in those terms after reading this book, and then looking back on my 30 years of knowing him. And he's one of the most cheerful, outgoing people that you will ever meet. I mean, he's part of the reason that he's successful is because he's got top 10 social skills. Like he could have written Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People if Dale hadn't written it. It's one of the many reasons that I admire him, but he is a stoicist. Like I was talking to him one day about a business thing that he had going. He was trying to sell one of his stores, and he had gone through this entire process of working with a lawyer and getting the contract drawn up, and he had spent like $20,000 in legal fees to get this store sold. And at the last minute, the buyer just backed out.
Ah,
And
man.
I said, damn, Jimmy, that's got to sting. You just wasted $20,000. And his answer was shocking in its instantaneous brevity. It was basically, look, that happens in business.
Mm.
And and it just really struck me. I'll never forget that, because it just really struck me the equanimity with which he dealt with that situation. I mean, he could have been furious, justifiably. I mean, even for him, $20,000 is not insignificant. Plus the
Right.
time and the energy that was
Sure.
wasted. He could have been furious at the buyer for being wishy-washy and making him go through all this. But he recognized that his energy was better spent elsewhere.
So
And
learning curve.
learning curve,
Learning curve.
and we're all on it. And I fully admit that had I been in his same situation, I would not have been nearly as sanguine about that at all. I would have been.
Yeah.
I would have at least for a little bit been turning the air blue. I would have not kept my cool.
Well,
So,
yeah, and
none
that's
of
part of the practice.
right.
Is not that you're not going to get mad. And why wouldn't that piss you off? I mean,
Right.
really. But it's like you said earlier on in the conversation, it's then recognizing this is what I have to deal with. This is the situation, and what is it that we're going to do with it,
Right.
about it, for it, whatever. And as we're sitting here talking, I am struck a little bit by now understand I know very, very little about Buddhism, but I think it's seeming to me that there's a connection.
Maybe so. I understand those perceptions, but I'm not nearly educated enough on that to know if it applies or not. But what Stoicism is certainly not is fatalism. It is not that at all. It is not just rolling over and allowing the world to chop you up. That's not what it is. Again, it's recognition of those situations and being at peace when it is what it is. It's and you talked about the learning curve. I'm on it still. I'm certainly not perfect at that.
Oh, we're breathing.
I'm further along that curve than I was when I was younger, for sure. I can recognize that in myself. But
sure.
Somebody cuts me off in traffic, or my order's not right at the, don't get napkins when I pick up my fast food, I'm still irritated. But what I do now, if I have time, is I call the restaurant and I say, hey guys, just a little bit of feedback. Napkins, not in my bag. I just hope you recognize that's important, and that's how I satisfy my whatever you want to call it, my angst or my anger or my energy or whatever. Try and flip that into an opportunity to maybe make the world a better place, because I'm surely
Mm.
not the only guy who didn't get napkins.
Right.
So
Right.
it's and it becomes one thing I've discovered is that it becomes easier and faster the more you do it, where you don't go
Yeah.
through as many of these, you know, wrestling matches with yourself, um, where you have to calm yourself down. You know, you get where your brain is already jumping forward to that because you're conditioned to that. You are, and even to be to the point where sometimes it's predictive. Okay, I know this might happen. I know that the AAA guy might take 2 hours to get to
Mm-hmm.
me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
might be late. So what am I going to do to be proactive to make that
Right.
situation less of a disaster? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but you have to be in a place of of calm to be able to think that way. And you know, being in a panic, being furious is not the right place.
No. No. And sometimes we can even discover that the result is better than what we even had in mind, what we thought it might look like.
It could be. It could
Yeah.
be. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an important point too to recognize in is that you really have no way of knowing how it was going to go otherwise.
Right. Right.
You know, that flat tire might have saved you from something far worse. And
Sure. Could be.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and look, I'm not saying that that kind of thinking is unlimited. You know, like in my particular situation, am I grateful that I have a spinal cord injury, and that I've, you know, met the people that I've met and had the some of the opportunities that I've had that I would not have had were I not in this position? Of course I am. Of course I'm grateful for those moments and for those people, but I would trade all of them in a heartbeat to have never been there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not, you know, it's not a question of having rose colored glasses with everything you look at. Again, it goes back to neither positive or negative, but just real and
Yeah.
being objective.
Yeah.
The other thing that I find as I try to
Mm-hmm.
practice this is that it's not just a near term thing. Um, that that situation that you deal with now, it, they get stored up, and this is part of what helps you build on that and makes you more fluid with it as you go down the road. Is uh, you know, take Jimmy for example, and getting burned for 20 grand on that deal. He'll approach the next deal differently.
Oh, sure. There's the
That's
learning
gonna
curve,
that's
right?
gonna get filed away. May not save him from having a similar situation, but
Mm-hmm.
at least he's got one more thing, you know, to be forearmed with going into anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, so you know, it's with me. Every time I get up to walk across the room, I'm literally thinking about how it could go. Might go well. My legs might work great, might work fine. Or it may be one of those times when I get up to go someplace and my legs are just on strike. And I know that getting up. And I know as soon as I start walking how it's going to go. And I
Mm-hmm.
have that ability to instantly pivot in my mind to what I need to do to deal with it rather than being like, oh man, I'm just not walking good. I don't spend any time with that kind of thinking. And and the more I read this book and the more I kind of thought about the processes that I just naturally go through as I deal with this stuff on the daily, the more I was like, yeah, I'm a stoic. Gonna get the t-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. design. I thought about saying, we should wear your t-shirt.
Well,
Maybe next time.
that t-shirt, the t-shirt that you're talking about, because I know people are going to be like, what?
You're
Um,
right.
I saw a t-shirt on a video of a guy. If you know if you've seen the movie, um, uh, it's a football movie. Remember the Titans?
Yes,
I think you know which one I'm talking
hmm
about,
I
right?
do. I do.
And
Hmm
do you remember the fat kid who could sing? You remember him?
No, I don't.
I hope I've
It's
got
been a
the
while.
I
It's
hope
been a
I've got the
while.
right movie. Anyway, I can't remember his name. He's an actor. And now 20 or however many years later on, that guy's gone through tons of challenges with his weight and his physical condition. And the effect, I'm going to look it up because
Oh,
this is
you mean in real life, this
in
guy?
real life,
Yeah.
and his story is pretty powerful. So
Huh.
I'm gonna take advantage of.
Now,
This is
was
one of those
that,
deals.
remember
This is one
the
of those.
Titans? Go
This is
ahead.
one of those deals right now where you think that your tech is listening to you, because as soon as I typed in "remember," what do you think popped up in Google? Remember the Titans, and let's see.
Now, is that the one that Denzel Washington is in?
Yeah,
Oh,
Ethan.
good.
Yeah, Ethan Suplee. I forget how, I don't know how you pronounce it, but look him up because
Okay.
he's skinny. He's a monster, like in the gym. Like he looks like he could lift the back of your car. And I was watching this video with him, and he had this shirt on that said "Die first, then quit."
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I got to find that shirt. And I couldn't find one for sale, so I made one. So
Yeah. And it's a very cool shirt.
yeah. So
It's a
anyway,
very
that's
cool
that's
shirt.
that's the
If
shirt
mine
story.
weren't in the laundry, I would pull it out and show
Right
it.
on. Well, so but it's worth looking him up. He's got a powerful story, and that
Okay.
that shirt is, again, that's kind of the essence of Stoicism.
All right.
Uh,
Well, I
in,
got another one for you.
yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed it on my Jeep or not, but I have the best bumper sticker there is. And it says, must be present
There
to
you
win.
go. Yeah. There you go.
Right? Right? Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. It's good. Well, I don't even know what time it is.
Oh, probably time to go. We've probably been wearing these people out long enough. It's kind of cool that you don't have ads,
No ads.
right? And don't have to get
No,
interrupted to pay the bills. So,
right? Don't have to do that station identification. This is so way more fun than radio. Just
well,
saying.
and look, huge props to you because doing the radio show was a great way for you to start because
Yes.
it got you well down the road on that. And but I always encouraged you to try and get your podcast going independently
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
to make YouTube a part of that. And it took you a little while, but just want to say
Yeah.
mad props for
Oh,
stepping up and getting it done. I know you hate
thank you.
technology, and I know that you were like, I don't even like uploading my files, but you were exercising stoicism at some point by saying, look, I got to get this done. And
Well, what happened was that technology sort of met me where I was, if that makes sense, because I saw how somebody else was doing it,
right,
and it became obvious to me that I could also do it that
of
way,
course. And
which
that's
is
how,
this way.
yeah, yeah. And that
Zoom is
happened.
pretty great. It's pretty great for this.
Yep.
And I love the organicness of it. I love that it's not perfect. there's no expectation that it's going to be perfect. You know,
Yeah, that's
I
that's
like that.
that's really the deal. I think that's why a lot of these podcasters like Joe Rogan, for example, have become so successful, because you get to do the long form and you keep it real and it is what it is. And I think that people are ready for that. They like that. So it's good. Hopefully.
It
I
seems to
hope
be
they,
true.
yeah. So
It seems to be true. Well, I really like having you on.
it's always
It's a
fun.
it's a Benny for me. It's an extra conversation we get to have.
Right, right.
And
It's always
now
fun.
an extra time I get to see you. Yeah.
Yep, for
So
sure.
it's good.
Always good.
It's
Always
good.
good.
All right. Well, so I'll sign us off. Friends, friends and family all over the world. Every time you tune in to the MJ Radio, you get to hear interesting conversations with interesting people about interesting things. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Will.
Thank you. Bye bye.